Boom, we're live.
Ronnie Millsap. Okay.
All right, guys. Let me just get straight a little here. I think we're good. Let me get. All right, welcome, man.
Hey,
How to
Steve.
be a hardcore
Good to see you, man.
homeowner.
Good seeing
Chief
you.
Millsap,
Good seeing you.
always good to see you.
Always good
West
to see you,
York
Chief.
Fire Chief and Police Chief. This guy's doing a lot.
Doing it all for us.
But anyway, it's good to have you. So we're gonna talk fire safety this week, Matt. What's going on? What are we
Hey,
talking
man, I
about?
tell you what, just another week in paradise, right?
It is.
How do you like it? So, hey, I just a couple things. We want to get started. This is episode 6 of How to Be a Hardcore Homeowner. Chief Matt, I don't know if you've seen the show at all.
I haven't.
Leading up. Okay, great. The whole goal of the show is just to educate homeowners, whether they're a young couple just bought a home for the first time, or whether it's an older couple who's had their house for 30 years. There are the same challenges, same responsibilities, same things that we get comfortable and not pay attention to. And so we've been featuring all kinds of things: how to prevent pipe breaks and how to prevent water damage and sewage backups.
Sure.
Just all the stuff, right? And so I thought the best way really to focus on fire safety and fire preparedness would be to get a guy like you in here.
Absolutely.
And so first off, I want to start off with a couple of thank yous. One is obviously thanks for being here today and helping us out with the show.
No
Two
problem.
is thanks for your, how many years in the fire departments?
26.
I was going to say,
26, I believe.
not bad for a 35-year-old, right? But thanks for all your years of dedicated service to fire safety, fire prevention, fire, just in the fire departments as a whole, and your dedication to the community. And then I understand you're also the police chief as well in West York.
Yeah, I oversee. My primary role is the police chief. I oversee the career side of the fire department. As far as things goes, in the role of the fire commissioner.
Right.
There's also a volunteer fire chief in West York that oversees the daily operations of his volunteer staffing. And prior to that, I did have a history in the career fire service for several years,
Gotcha.
and worked in fire protection with the federal government, with the Defense Department for several years.
Nice. Well, what I can tell you that I know is, and I know a lot of firefighters, a lot of fire chiefs from being in the property restoration world for 20 plus years, and
Sure.
I got to tell you, it can be thankless, and it can be long hours, and it can be just put your fork down and go. Here's the bell's ringing, so it's never dull, right?
Absolutely.
But the commitment that has to be there for you folks is unbelievable, and I'm sure I speak for everybody that's watching that we appreciate it. So. Listen, again, just like every week, I don't have any notes. I don't do that. I think it can be very organic and just have a
probably
conversation.
the best way to roll.
Yeah, I think so, because I think when you get somebody who knows what they're talking about and is passionate about it, it comes pretty natural and pretty easy. So, I'd really like this to be a lot of, let the folks listen to you a lot today, and again, just whatever you want to talk about. I mean, I know that. I'll steer it a little bit. There's things like we want to talk about smoke detectors. We want to talk about candles. Like my wife is she loves to burn these candles. Now on the flip side of that is her OCD and is just crazy about her control over those things, like where she
Sure.
puts them. Like she's really anal about it, which is
Crystal,
great.
please
But
share. Good morning.
A lot of people aren't. A lot of people will light a candle, stick it. I've seen people that say the best place to put a candle and have it burn is on the stove. And okay.
No.
So talk about that a little bit if you want.
I think as far as the candles go, and specifically with candles, the important thing is they keep them away from anything combustible. So if the stove is an ideal location and there's not dish rags or other things that could catch on fire, and especially not
Sue, good
old
morning.
cans of grease or anything
That's
like that.
exactly
sitting
right,
around, then the stove could be an optimal place. It's on a
Please share.
non-combustible surface. Generally the stove top's metal, and so that's a good place. I'd probably recommend, and I believe the best practice would be to have some type of ceramic hot dish or hot plate,
Like a
type-
base,
base underneath of it. The most important thing I'd probably suggest or recommend, and I know this is something that repeatedly we see, is people forgetting to blow out the candles when they're not going. And actually going beyond that, if you have candles lit remotely throughout your house, just monitoring them, making sure.
Right.
Truly the best practice would be to just have lit candles in the area that you're currently occupying inside a residence. But I know a lot of people, whether it be for fragrances or for ambiance or conserving electric, that type of thing, use candles in various areas of their house. Again, those same rules as far as keeping them away from non-combustibles, away from drapes, curtains,
Sure.
bed linens, things like that, off of carpeting. all those types of things. That those rules apply, but you would need to monitor and be pretty vigilant. Your wife's OCD, as you said,
She's crazy
is
about it.
probably a good thing in the fact that she not only knows where they're all at, but monitors them and doesn't leave them lit. But the big thing with candles would be keep in mind a natural substance like wax in a wick doesn't have some type of tip over shut off or anything.
So animals,
pets,
cat gets up there, yeah.
cat gets over and knocks something down.
Tall, skinny
you know.
candle can tip.
Absolutely.
Short, fat one,
So-
less
and-
so. But
And
Shane, let me see that camera, the one with the pictures. There.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah,
So, what about with people leaving their ovens? I mean, I know a lot of times people use their ovens for heaters. A lot of people don't realize that. But do you ever see that? And is that a safe thing to do?
we do see that, and no, it's not safe. I mean, you should never resort to, I understand that there are a lot of people in
Sure.
really hard ways,
Yeah.
but they're actually safer, low-cost economic options for maintaining heat within a room or within a structure. You should never use your oven.
Because that
to
heat,
heat
that
your house.
concentrated heat is just like kind of like when I
Yeah,
was
there are a
t-
variety of problems with that, including the overheating of the elements within the stove and the possible combustibility of the stove itself over a long-term period of being left on and producing heat. But heating or trying to supplement a heating system with the oven is just
Well,
a
the-
horrible practice. It's very unsafe.
No doubt. And the other thing about that is, those appliances are made to heat up really hot
Correct.
for a short period of time to cook something
Absolutely.
and then cool back down.
Sure.
And repeat.
And-
And to turn it up really hot and leave it go.
And leave it there for extended periods of time.
They're not insulated for that.
Share.
The coils aren't proper for that. It's going to malfunction. So especially the age of the appliance would come into play as well. I mean, obviously
Absolutely.
something brand new is less likely to cause you an issue. But
What if
you
a
have an older
cord gets
stove-
warm? Because I mean, is that not supposed to happen? Is the cord not supposed to get warm? Because I've had that happen to my stuff, and it freaks me out, and I'm like, yeah, something's not
Yeah, no,
right.
if you have a cord or any type of electrical circuit that is overheating or getting warm, and especially any type of cord that plugs into a regular 110 outlet in a house, immediately switch that out, replace that cord, replace whatever it's attached to, if that's the case. They should not get warm. There's also potential to overload. Like an extension cord, for example. So if you're drawing too much electricity through it by having too many things plugged into an electrical out or a extension cord, for example, that can cause it to heat up. And
Do you
and
notice
certainly
that a
move
lot,
fire.
like with all the electronics?
Yeah,
Like,
we
you look
use
at
it.
me right there.
Absolutely. Now it looks like within
Wow.
your studio, you at least have more of a commercial type of outlet distribution system there, but we do
Chris,
see and notice a lot of overloading of electrical outlets, especially like Shane had identified. The more we rely on technology and electronics and cell phone chargers and things like that, it's very, very common to go into residences these days and see overloaded outlets.
No doubt. And the other biggest misconception too is if you have a power strip,
Mm-hmm.
some people think I can plug everything in now because I'm protected. And there's some things to be thought of about that too. I mean, power strips are different. So, how old is the power strip?
Yeah,
What's it set up to do? Does it have an emergency trip or is it just a glorified extension cord? There's lots of variations to those and you have to be careful with those as well.
Right, and you know as well, probably better than I do, if you work with electrical much, or at least deal with electrical contractors. 110 outlet is only capable, and it's the wiring inside the outlet's based off of, the intended draw or the average draw of that. So when you start overloading it, yes, some of these surge protectors can maybe they're built to a higher standard or they have thicker gauge
Right.
wire, that type of thing. That doesn't mean what's inside your wall has thicker gauge wire. If you
Correct.
follow what I'm saying.
Yeah, and if you plug a space heater into something that has, because that draws a lot of power.
Sure.
You just have to be aware of what you have plugged in where, that you're not.
Absolutely.
And Shane, your point is great. If you pick up a cord and it's warm or hot, you need to plug it in somewhere else, where there's nothing else plugged into that circuit. Because
Optimally replace the cord because there may be damage already done. If
Yeah,
it
that's
heated
for
up,
sure.
and especially if it was heating up for a longer period of time, it could have caused melting of the wiring inside. It could have caused problems with the jacketing of the wire itself. So the best bet is if you find like an extension cord that's overheated, that it's hot to the touch physically, it's just to replace that and swap that out.
What if your breaker keeps going off and you keep shutting it on? I learned this lesson the hard way.
I mean, I think anything with electric, I'd always recommend you call a qualified electrician.
So if it keeps shutting off, that means something
there's
right
something
don't
not
keep-
If
right.
it's tripping,
Yeah,
there's
if it's
something wrong.
tripping, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, there's you might be able to reset the breaker and keep power on, but that doesn't take away from the fact that something caused it to trip.
So Shane, if
So
that
if
happens,
you
who
ever
do you
need
call?
You gotta have a guy.
You gotta have a
I'm
guy,
calling
right?
I'm
You
calling
gotta have a
like-
guy, right?
Yeah.
See, that's
But
what we've been
so
talking
key.
about,
A lot
is
of
having a
people-
guy for these types
Yeah.
of things. And I say guy, and I don't mean that to be not
We say gal. Jason,
guy or
good to
gal,
see
whatever.
you.
But we need to have that person,
Yeah.
and that's what we're promoting is
Love
get to
that.
know those people now. Figure them out. So that when you have that, and it may be something critical that you need, that you rely
Hey,
on
Chris.
right now. Well, who are you going to call? Call your guy. Have him come take a look at it. And make sure it's safe, or make sure we're doing the right thing. So I just had to take that plug in there. That's part of being a hardcore homeowner is making
Have a
sure
guy.
we're set up to have a guy.
Yeah.
And it may be several guys. Maybe you need one for electric,
Sure.
you need one for plumbing. So,
Sure.
along those lines, let's talk real quick about smoke detectors. Okay?
Smoke detectors.
Smoke detectors, and I don't know about, well, I can guarantee it, but I'll let you speak to it. But I bet you there are a ton of homes that you go into it for fire calls that either don't have detectors, one,
Oh, absolutely.
have detectors that are outdated
Sure.
and are non-functional, or have detectors that are broken, that you can clearly see are broken, that haven't been addressed.
Please share this.
And what the big deal is about having those, and how often you should maintain them, and what should your average Joe homeowner who doesn't know anything about anything, what should they do?
Aside from practicing good fire safety and good fire prevention techniques with things like we've already discussed, monitoring candles,
Sure.
appropriate use of electrical outlets, not leaving the oven on for prolonged periods of time. Aside from those things, those are all great first steps you could take to prepare yourself to prevent a situation like a fire. Having said that, though, fires do happen, accidents do happen.
They
There
do.
may be that one time that you forget to blow out the candle. There may be that one time that you don't realize that there's a problem with one of your outlets or something
Sure.
like that, and a fire results. Smoke detectors are truly your first line of defense in notifying you that problem's existing, or that the fire's occurring or developing. Okay. So,
My wife thinks that when it goes off, it means the food's done. Is that a problem? I think that's what Brian Zales said to me one time. So.
mine does too. So
Oh, food's ready.
No, I haven't said that. So smoke detectors are just inherently important tool to have in every house, in every occupied area, even areas adjacent to occupied areas. So
Sure.
hallways next to bedrooms, hallways leading into inhabited areas, living areas, the kitchen, of course, because a lot of fires, start there. So with that in mind, one of the things that we recognize, almost it's cyclical, is that people aren't replacing smoke detector batteries. Even with a lot of the modern constructed houses that have hardwired smoke detectors, there's still a battery backup, and they have a power failure or something like that.
And if the house is on fire, there's a good chance the electrical's
The
down.
electrical's going to go down. So with that in mind, smoke detector battery changes. That's something that we recommend every time you change your clocks, change your smoke detector battery. So about every 6 months. I do recognize that they're making batteries that last a lot longer these days, all types of new technology.
What are we talking about?
However,
$9?
you could get
You
probably
have 6 detectors, so $18 maybe.
not even that. I mean,
know.
what's the cost of a 9-volt battery? I mean,
Right, I mean,
especially if we're going to rotate through them every 6 months, you're talking. I think you could get probably a pack of 20 9-volts for, depending on the manufacturer, less than $20.
Right.
A lot of
And
times
so-
people can go to their local fire department and they would help them a lot of fire departments, right? Not always, but a lot of them.
In some cases, some of the local fire departments have smoke detectors that they're able to provide and furnish to people. I know that's been a campaign I believe the city fire department's done. West York, we have had smoke detectors available. Some of the other fire departments in York County have been able to obtain smoke detectors to be able to hand out and give to the public, especially those that are in
Nice.
need or couldn't afford them. So smoke detectors truly are your first line of defense in letting you know that there's a problem or that there's a fire inside your house. And so, again, every 6 months, When you change your clocks, change your
I
smoke
think that's a
detector
great
batteries.
word. And some people change them when they beep. And what I tell people is that's fine.
What does
If
that
it's-
mean
if
when
it's-
they beep?
If it's beeping, it means the battery's getting low and it wants fresh juice, right? So you're gonna change that battery.
So you shouldn't, if you're renting, don't say, "Oh, what's my landlord?" It's your responsibility, your family. Like I go into a lot of places that I go into.
Well, who do you trust more, yourself or your landlord? I mean, for
Yeah.
$3 a piece,
For
I
the
think I'm gonna
cost of the
go
battery, yeah.
change that out
Now-
myself.
Now, in the same regard, there are if you're renting, like for example, in the jurisdiction that I oversee, we have a fairly thorough codes program. So there are for rental properties, cyclical inspections where we do things like verify that smoke detectors are working,
Sure.
or that they're even there within the residence. We check for other things to ensure people are able to make an egress in the case of an emergency, as well as things that would reduce the potential for a fire. But, as far as being a hardcore homeowner, we're talking about owning the home, we're talking about living there, we're taking the responsibility and
Exactly.
making that home ours, and a smoke detector should be one of the first pieces.
And if
of
you're renting it,
equipment
it's-
that
And we
It's
have a
your-
lot of
still your home.
investors out there. The investors
Yeah.
should take care of their
Absolutely.
properties, right?
Absolutely.
Well, the NFPA code would state, I think, if you're an
If you're
investor
renting,
and you
yeah.
own it and rent it out,
Absolutely.
you have a
It would fall under
responsibility.
commercial standards.
For sure. So very important, and I know those get caught in inspections when if it's someone that says it's going to flip a house and sell it, that the inspector's going to come in and make sure that they're in the proper places. Like I know that there's certain areas you shouldn't have one right here. It should be over here. And you can't just put them anywhere. There's
Well, there
strategic
is-
locations
Where do you
for
put them? Where do you
they're
put smoke
required.
detectors? Because
It would be probably impossible to go through every possible
Right.
scenario.
Yeah, there's
They're
lots.
sitting
But in
there, there's
general?
lots. In general,
Bedrooms,
well, yeah,
hallways?
inhabited areas of the structure,
Common
adjacent
areas for
leading
sure.
to leading to inhabited areas, and all common public, for lack of better words, public areas.
But not
of
kitchens,
residence.
right? Because
Well, no,
I mean,
you would have them associated between the kitchen and the dining area.
Okay.
yeah.
for sure.
Alright.
Certainly, because a lot of fires start in the kitchen.
How do you
so,
know when the meal's
you know.
done? Yeah.
Right. I know what the meals are. No, so it's important, right? That's a little thing, and people are so busy, but it can change everything, right? Like,
Absolutely.
and we talk about you. I mean, it's a hardcore homeowner. These are things you want to get ahead of it, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be.
Well, yeah, I mean,
behind.
we've talked about the importance of making sure that if it's super freezing cold outside that you open up your cabinet doors under your sink and let some heat get in there, or run the faucet. We've talked about those things from a
Dave,
prevention
Donnie,
standpoint.
Omar,
It's way more
Christopher.
important. 'Cause let me tell you the other thing I know about fires, and I've worked in 20 years residential and commercial fires
babe.
both, hundreds on site, right? Almost every single one of them, the one common thread that somebody says to me is, we just never thought it would happen to us.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
we never. Well, there's no way we never thought.
Sure.
So we're gonna think about that today, because guess what? If you own a property or live in a property, which everybody does one of the two, something is bound to happen at some point, whether it's
Well, and Matt,
little or
keep-
big.
Do keep in mind also that especially if you're in an attached property, it's not maybe you could be the safest person in the world, but
What about the
your
neighbor?
neighbors?
You see the row homes in
so-
the city all the time.
Well, you
One
gotta
burns
see
and it
that.
takes out 4. So
So again, it might not be that you're doing anything unsafe. You might be practicing great fire prevention techniques at home, but your neighbor, if something happens with your neighbor,
That's exactly
you
right.
want to know if there's a fire. So that's why smoke detectors. And for the homeowners, I always recommend fire extinguishers. Okay,
well,
something
that's
a
what
lot
a
of
great
people-
point.
That's something a lot of people don't.
I bet if we took
don't
a
consider.
survey right now, how many people have a fire extinguisher under your
Very
sink in your
few.
kitchen, and maybe in your garage would be 2 great locations for a fire extinguisher, right?
Sure.
How many people have them? Now, they cost. You can go to Lowe's and buy them. Home Depot.
Sure.
You can go
I
anywhere.
believe,
Yeah.
I believe you could get them for less than $30
Yeah.
for a good combination
Yeah.
A, B, C, and
Yeah, for all the cost,
yeah, yeah.
for just a universal type
Sure.
one to have under there.
Sure.
I do. I'm happy to
So-
say that I have one hanging on my garage wall, and I have one under the sink, and I do check them. I think I change them once a year. Now I've maybe
Wow.
lapsed and gone.
They have a
extra year,
gauge
but
on it.
There's a gauge, and if you don't tickle that for yourself to
Sure.
Thanks
look
for
at,
sharing,
but
babe.
having it's a big deal. And I guarantee a lot of homeowners don't have those.
So yeah, no, and I see that a lot. People trying to put out a small fire with a garden hose or something like that. Fire extinguisher is a great option. But certainly, if you're ever in your house or in someone's house, it's on fire. if you have any doubt that you'd be able to control it with an extinguisher, the best thing to do is get out of the house. Get out of the house. Help everybody else. It's better, children.
How fast do
elderly.
fires grow?
They can
I
spread
think
very
about-
rapidly. For every minute that the fire develops, it doubles in size and heat intensity.
Wow.
So
Every minute?
Yeah. So a fire until it gets to a point what's called flashover, and at that point in time, there's not really a chance for survivability inside the structure, and that can occur, especially in modern construction housing with a lot of the engineered materials. and
Eric
stuff,
Gladshaw,
within 10 minutes.
Hey, Eric.
Honest Home Solutions. What about
Yeah.
throwing water on a fire in the? I mean, a lot of people don't know. You hear these different things. If you're in a stove, what should you be thinking, and what should you be using, and should you be using water around your stove?
Now, all the more reason to have a fire extinguisher. A lot of fires that are on the stove or grease related, throwing water on it would just really intensify it and spread it. So the types of homeowner model fire extinguishers generally would be able to handle all your wooden combustibles. They'd be able to handle greases and things like that,
Sure.
as well as electrical fires.
It's like
Because
a
you also
full-
don't want to throw water on an electrical outlet either that's
Not
on
at all.
fire, or an appliance that's on fire. So you want to look for one that's rated for A, B, and C,
Jay
which
Barry.
is the different types of combustible fires.
Right.
There's also a rating of D, which is for metals. Those are more for people that have, if you have some type of metal shop application or
Industrial
something like that.
applications, that kind of-
That's
So if
when
they
you get
go
into some of
to-
those weird ones. But ABC is what you want to look for on the.
So
the
viewers
fire
should go to the
extinguishers.
store. I recommend you get two. One for under the sink. One to hang on the wall
And
in
they
the
sell them.
garage.
They sell them in 2-packs.
Sell them in
actually.
2-packs.
Share this,
Get
invite
an
your friends. It's
ABC
important
rated
stuff.
fire
Fire
extinguishers and
extinguisher.
have them on hand. It can't hurt. Maybe even in the laundry room. Maybe you get 3
Sure.
because now I'm gonna transition because I did some homework and I kind of know this. to be
TC
true, I want
Backer.
to check.
See you
Hey,
tonight.
Ty Cobb.
Bam.
So, am I still on track with the number one cause of residential fires in the United States is from cooking?
Cooking is the result of
And-
a lot of the fires. Yes.
And number two, dryers. I think they're right.
Oh,
It's
wow.
right there.
I think it's very. I think they maybe generically coined it appliance.
Appliance,
right?
okay,
But
failure,
the dryers,
appliance
the
failure.
dryers, and a lot of that deals with the maintenance, the failed maintenance also on dryers.
And
So-
see, we've done a show
so,
on it,
yeah.
but we've talked about it where
Wow, you're hearing
not
it
only do
first
you
hand.
need to get a legitimate company to come in and clean the dryer vent,
Sure.
the
Please
whole
share.
duct.
Yeah.
Start a
They could
watch
run
party.
2 feet, they could run 40 feet.
Sure.
Code is up to 40 in a
Yeah.
residential home.
Wow.
So you got a 4-inch pipe that could run 40 feet and it meets code. And now what that tells me is, it drives me insane to be honest with you, but when they're building these houses nowadays, right? You can build a $350,000 house in 90 days. It's insane.
Yeah.
And so and I'm not saying that there are builders cutting corners and stuff like that, but you can't go that fast, and mistakes are going to happen. Stuff's going to happen. But when it's designed to vent a dryer in a 4-inch pipe, 40 feet,
in a house.
let's do some thought to that, because now how hard are you making the dryer work to push that hot air out, right? So it takes your clothes longer to get dry. So now you're running the dryer longer. It's working really hard to vent it. It's gonna fail.
Not only that, but I've seen a big trend, especially in modern construction recently, to prevent birds and other critters from getting up into the pipe where it discharges to the exterior. They're putting some type of, not the one-way flappers, but it's almost more like a cage.
A screen,
What people
yep.
don't realize is that screen fills up just as you change your lint screen within
betcha.
the dryer.
Wow.
That can block and completely, can get congested. Those screens full of lint.
That's exactly
And so unless you're monitoring these things, yeah, you might see things like your clothes aren't getting dry, it's working harder. Even
Touch
in some
the top of
cases,
that dryer, it's
dryer,
super hot.
thermocoupler blows. It's probably because of some type of congestion
not
or
venting
cloggage in the venting system. So
Or internally. So where you pull, we talked about this on the show one time, when you pull your dryer, lint screen out and you clean that off, right? Let me tell you a couple other things about that I've learned is, not only do you just wipe that and clean and throw it away, but every once in a while, take one of those, and if you're watching, do this. If you're at home, go get your dryer lint screen, go over to your faucet, turn it on, and put it under, and see if the water goes through it. See if the water passes through that.
Wow.
And it'll puddle on top. I'll guarantee you. And then it'll start to drip through. Because you wipe it off, but is the airflow really that good? All you take is you just use your scrub brush and you scrub it off both sides,
Even
rinse
a
it,
sponge in
tap
some
it dry,
cases,
even a
but-
sponge, and
but
put it
there's a
back in
lot of
every
microfibers,
month, every
yeah.
once in a while, because you're choking your dryer. Number two, down inside that cavity where that fits, lint gets through around corners and all that, and it builds up in there, all the way underneath the dryer.
Well,
So
And keep in
when-
mind, at the bottom of the dryer is where your motor is.
That's
It's
where the
exposed,
motor
and
is.
It's exposed. It's not, you know,
Exactly
see it,
right.
you have hot pieces
Exactly
on
right.
it, so yeah,
And they make all kinds of, as seen on TV, devices and things that you can get in there with this little brush that gets in there or a vacuum cleaner, but I don't care what you use, just do something.
Sure.
Right? I mean, to prevent the fire, one, you lose your dryer, they're expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the fire damage you have in the house. What if you're not home and it gets worse? So, like you said, if a laundry room is small and it's downstairs and a fire begins and you don't have a fire extinguisher, right? The only option you're really going to have is to run.
Terry.
And now it's going up. So we've got to be aware of these things. People just have
How
to
about
know.
these frying these turkeys? I'm glad I'm not into that. They seem like the
I'll
biggest.
tell you what, I got some friends that do it, and they
looks
almost.
dangerous.
It is. I mean,
It's very
It's extremely. You could look on YouTube, I believe, and you'll see where it explodes in some cases. It's very
I'm
dangerous.
watching. I'm like, wow, these people have this whole system and cranes just to
Oh
get,
yeah,
like
I've seen motor
get
engine
burned.
pullers.
I mean,
like
we
lower
must have a lot of calls from garage fires and burns and stuff from people not being a hardcore homeowner. I mean, a hardcore homeowner thinks about the consequences first, right? And then they get educated. You have your guy, you have your gal, and you are in touch with the people around your community on, because every community is going to be different on what. We have some old houses.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Like,
There's no
absolutely.
question. And listen, YouTube is your friend. I hate to tell you.
Yeah.
You can do a whole lot of things
The
and learn a whole lot of things on
University of
YouTube.
YouTube, yeah.
That's exactly right, though. I mean, if you YouTube it and say deep fry turkey do's and don'ts, you're going to find videos of people that learn the hard way,
On fried turkey.
and they'll show you the right way and how to take precautions and to do it out in the backyard, in the middle of the yard, and all the things. Don't drop it in, lower it, all those things. But the good news about insurance, is we talked about it before, is stupidity's covered a lot of times. So.
But it can't replace you.
But it can't replace you, and it can't replace a burnt arm where you got grease all over your arms, and it can't. Yes, it's insurance, but I'd rather prepare. And
So
be
is
aware.
having a way out important? Like, I mean, because you
Yeah,
have a
and-
lot of rental properties and a lot of houses that are tall properties over there. And if people on the third floor, like, they should, have a plan.
Well, certainly,
right?
and that's one of the reasons we inspect to make sure there's no blockage of egress, exits. The
And you've
doors
done a
are
great
locked,
job. I
things
gotta
like
say, your fire department,
But,
you guys have done a great job at making your part of the world like more friendly to everybody in the community.
Well, thank you, Shane. We want to look out for our residents. We want to make sure they're safe and
No doubt.
protected. So, but as far as things go, hardcore homeowners, everybody should have a fire safety plan, a plan of what they're going to do. I know that they've been telling kids this for years, and excuse me, less and less do I see people actually putting it in place. But if you have children, work with them on how you get out. In some cases, you mentioned high-rise buildings or whatever. I've even seen escape ladders and things like that from kids' bedrooms that are sold commercially. Figure out what's going to be the best and quickest way to get out of the house, because that's the most important thing to do if you notice a fire. Get out, have a muster point or a rally point where you and your family meets up. Obviously, if you have young children, do what you can to get them out. Make it your priority. There may be cases where there would be fire, you would just not be able to get to your children's bedroom, and in that case, having that plan for them to know where to have gone, you can feel at least more confident that they know where to go and know how to get out without your assistance. So it should be practiced with and without assistance, but definitely every homeowner, every house, every family should have a plan for what to do and where they're going to meet, how they're going to get out of the house.
Do people, is smoke, you hear about smoke inhalation, is that because they stay in too long, they think they can breathe it comes up on you quick? What's the deal with the smoke?
All the above, I would guess.
Yeah, smoke's a byproduct of combustion, and especially one of the things you have to consider is with more modern lightweight construction materials, you have more adhesives, glues, oriented strand board as opposed to true plywood or rough
Sure.
cut lumber, that type of thing, and it's producing more combustible toxic gases. So having said that, unfortunately we get an unfair reality painted on TV where they smoke up a room and you can still see across the room and things like that. Truthfully, in a fire condition in an average residential house, you can't see anything and you can't breathe. Getting low, if you would be in that circumstance, the best thing you can do is get as low as possible and crawl to egress. And again, as a homeowner, the more you've planned, the more you've rehearsed for the safe way out. Your mind, your body will know where to go. But if the smoke conditions are that bad, get as low as possible and make your way towards that exit that you've planned for.
Does solar change it? Because you see a lot of solar roofs. Does that change the way you guys or a homeowner should attack if they have a situation? Does it change anything? With having solar panels on the roof or not really for the homeowner?
They're different. I mean, it wouldn't be something that the homeowner
has to worry
necessarily
about. They don't
would
even
have to
tell
worry
you
about.
guys, hey, we have solar.
It's usually obvious, even if the fire is venting through the roof, if they have solar panels and things like that. One of the things that the initial arriving fire department units will do is a 360 of the scene to try to better assess any type of hazards in the structure, heavy equipment on the roof, things like that, solar panels. Yet there are some things inherently we do differently tactically, if you would, in combating the fire if it's a house that has solar panels. But that's not
Nothing-
something
that's
necessarily
nothing for
for,
the
yeah, that's not necessarily something.
Okay,
The,
good.
the homeowner at that point needs to make sure that they're safe, their family's safe, and the fire department, we've trained in these areas, we'll be able to do our job. You guys just let us know. The most important thing a homeowner can do is if there would be occupants remaining inside, is let everybody know, and the fire department, when they get on scene, that there's someone unaccounted for.
Where, yeah.
But the technical configuration of your
Sure.
house and things like that, just make sure you're safe. Let us know if there's somebody that possibly is still inside.
Now, here's another topic that I like. I did some studying on this. I've seen it a couple times. Is bedrooms. It's far more safe, or far safer, however you want to say
Shasta.
it, to sleep with the bedroom door closed. Correct?
Yes.
Because if a fire happens in a common area,
Yeah.
we've seen, and I've seen the photos where
Where-
it shows bedrooms that are burned out, and then it shows when they had the door shut, and it was just some smoke damage.
Yes,
And
all residential doors, or at least ones that are bought commercially, are rated.
Right.
Okay. So having said that, there's a fire rating that applies to them of how long it will take for fire to burn through. Generally, with the great response times that you see locally in York County in this area, with all of our fire departments, both the career fire departments, the volunteer fire departments, whatever area you live in, they're generally able to get there in time that they're able to extinguish and control fires prior to them make it through that fire rating on those doors, that
Sure.
period of time it would take to burn through. So yes, absolutely, it blocks the travel and the spread of fire. Now that doesn't mean that a residential door will indefinitely, forever prevent fire from getting through. Obviously, it'll
No, of
burn
course
through at
not.
some point.
As long as it burns.
But 5 minutes could make a
Buy you
difference
some
between
time
life
and-
death.
they get water on the scene, and then that
Yeah.
room's still intact.
Sure.
And it's just if someone was in there, they can make it out safe. If that door's shut, if it's wide open, here it comes.
Sure.
You're inviting it in.
Yep.
So,
And depending on, a lot of things that we found in the recent years is that open windows, things like that, it's called flow path. The flow of air through a structure is really what drives fires. So if you're in a bedroom, you have your window open, that fire's looking for oxygen, it's gonna go
It's gonna suck it
towards,
that
yeah.
way.
So just keeping a door closed could be the difference between life and death.
so let's talk a minute about what can we as homeowners, and I know the answer to the question, but because I've got a couple things. Is
Lewis, one
as a
more time.
hardcore homeowner, with prevention
Sure.
in mind, and with okay, when you stop and think about something, right? What's the game plan? If something were to happen,
Sure.
these guys have to get here. So parking in front of fire hydrant, absolute no.
Yeah,
Even I'm just going to be here for 20 minutes.
No,
Come on,
yeah.
guys, right? It drives me insane. You see it in residential neighborhoods all the time. They're right in front of the neighborhood. Hey, that's fine. You guys are going to hook a chain up to it, and rip that car out of there, and
Or
or
go
go through the windows and
so,
hook
yeah.
on, right? So that's one. The other one that drives me nuts, and I'm really anal about this, but of course I just know it from my years, is snow. If you're a residential development, okay, and I live in a development with roads and streets, houses on both sides, we have fire hydrants every so often. When they get snowed in, we're gonna dig those out for you guys. I mean, it's a big deal, right? I mean, me and my neighbors just tag team it. We just know it from years of living
that's
there.
appreciated. Most of the fire companies in the area, we have maps that show where all our hydrants are.
Right.
And when there's a significant snowfall, we'll go out and dig them out. But the more, that takes time, that takes resources. That
course.
could even delay response to get into a fire if all the crews are out digging out some, fire hydrants. So having said that, if you as homeowners want to embrace your community, embrace your development, embrace your block, and take that initiative, it's greatly appreciated.
Because the
It's much
plow comes
appreciated.
through, throws all that
Throws
snow
it
up
right
on
over.
the curb, right?
Sure.
So we've got to dig that out. We've got to make sure that you guys are able to connect to those things, whether it's for our house or a neighbor's house. It's just the right thing to do.
Sure.
I mean, they make us dig out the mailbox, or you don't get your mail.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is a little bigger deal, I think, than getting your mail. So, I mean, I just like to bring those things up. It's a pretty big deal. So, what have we left out? So, we've talked about candle safety. We've talked about the need to have fire extinguishers in the home if you don't have it. I'd love to see our local stores sell out. I mean, I'd love to see people just go out today and get what they need. Dryers, all your appliances.
Appliance maintenance.
Appliance maintenance is a big deal.
We talked about smoke detectors,
Smoke
fire
detectors.
extinguishers. You know, the biggest thing is the prevention. You have to, the hardcore homeowner would approach it in two ways. There's the prevention and then there's the plan. So the
Right.
preventive techniques like you're discussing now, and then the plan for, okay, something happened, now what do we do?
Right.
And it should be one of the first things you do as a homeowner is, start looking at what you can do to prevent fire and what you're going to do if there is a fire.
Now I'm going to get real nitpicky on this one.
Sure.
Mark,
And
you see
only
it?
because this was an experience that I had.
Mhm.
So on the front door of a home, metal door, right? Knob, deadbolt. Okay? Deadbolts typically have a knob on the inside that you can turn and unturn, right?
Correct.
And a key on the outside for you to come and go.
The residential.
There are two key on the inside, key on the outside as well.
Mhm.
Some people I've seen, especially if they have side panel windows, like really anal hardcore homeowners, what
Sure.
they're thinking, right? You don't want to leave the key in that because now I can bust the window, reach through, and unlock that door.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay?
That's more a security thing.
But the problem that I have with that is we had that situation at a fire where people couldn't get out because the key wasn't in the. I mean, they couldn't turn and unlock the deadbolt to get out. The key wasn't handy. It was like on the table. The table had fallen over. They couldn't get out of the house. So, I mean, I get both
Well-
sides of that coin. I'd rather be robbed than burned.
I don't
you know.
I'm trying to think of the actual NFPA code relating to residential door locks, but the best practice would be to have the one that has the manual throw on the inside, the key on the exterior.
Or very worse, leave the key in there
I
if you-
can't.
if you hit it.
Yeah, but I can't think of many applications in a residential, your average residential house where you'd really benefit by having to use a key on the interior.
I only bring it up because I saw, and I don't know how many people out there older
I'm sure you've
homes.
seen lots of strange things,
Yeah, and that's
just like
what-
I have.
I'd like to bring them up just to be safe.
I think sometimes maybe I've seen that they advertise this as a stronger type lock, depending on the lock manufacturer. They make these double-sided, double key-sided
Right.
deadbolts. I just don't see, as far as the residential application, the reason
I
to
see
have
no
the
value.
key inside. A lot of aftermarket modifications or repairs to locks or a homeowner replacing it, not really knowing what to buy. That's how you could end up that way.
I see that.
And in that case, certainly there needs to be some type of assurance that the door, for your safety,
it's really just
is
think-
either unlocked. In other words, if you're inside the house, don't necessarily throw it or keep the key in it. But again, you bring up the security issue of somebody then is able to easily get inside. Do keep in mind though, with most residential door locks, the throw of a deadbolt's only about this far in the door frame, and oftentimes, unless that's reinforced, if somebody wants to get into your house, they're going to get
They're
in.
gonna get in.
Okay, so
You're keeping out
You
good
know.
people, not bad.
You need a Clifford if you don't want someone to get in.
Clifford, that's right.
The only other thing we didn't talk about, if we could just go over this, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm encouraging. I know this is a great financial burden. A central alarm station, a central alarm in a house,
Sure.
alarm systems. They're all out there, every if you're moving into a newer development. It seems like a
And they're
couple of different
cost-effective today.
alarm manufacturing companies. They look for the people when the sign says sold, they'll be at your door. the
Housing
next day.
development's going up, yep.
There's all different options right now for both security as well as fire alarms. There's different types of detectors and things like that. The one thing I would say is if you're going to look for an alarm system, you want to make sure it's what they call central station alarm, where it calls into a central location that is able to alert emergency
Dispatch.
responders.
Yep.
Because what I've seen in some cases is people were trying to save money and get out and not use the subscription service and whatnot. And really all it does is just sound a
Makes a
local
loud
alarm.
noise.
It makes a loud noise. But especially if there's a fire, or if you live
Well,
in
now
a
you're
remote
counting on the
isolated
time it
area,
takes for your neighbor to hear it and call for you or whatever.
And
yeah.
how many
They might
neighbors,
not.
a lot of neighbors would be hesitant,
Wow.
thinking, oh, well,
I don't wanna get involved.
So one of the things I would say is if you
Central
are going to
station.
get an alarm system, make sure it's
Good
one,
point.
pay for the subscription or whatever. Make sure it
RJ.
actually will call for help so you don't end up with a maybe an unrealistic idea of what it's capable of just by
Sure.
making a noise.
And
one
it's
thing I
important to
wanted
know,
throw
is
out
it,
there,
is it
so.
wireless too? Is it, I mean, they're,
Yeah.
they're pretty affordable out there now too. I mean, it's,
Well, there are. There's
there's
tons of different-
systems out there. So,
Yeah.
and of course, we're talking to a wide array of folks. You know, some
Sure.
downtown living in apartments and
Sure.
and all the way out to to Wyndham Hills or wherever. But
Sure.
so it's important to cover that full facet. But everyone can do the things that we're talking about, right? Everyone can be aware and be prepared and have a conversation. Do I think you need to be the Brady Bunch and have a fire drill at your house? Maybe not, but do I think you should have a
I
conversation?
think you do. I think.
Do you think it's a good idea?
I think you probably should.
I
yeah.
like-
And part of the plan. I think part of that plan, aside from just sitting around the table talking
Yeah.
about it, is to go out and actually practice it.
What are we gonna do if it happens?
You
Yeah.
know, we recommend people practice it probably on an annual basis. But
Look at that.
But having said that, I know that's maybe unrealistic. But as long as you at least have it in place and try it
Have the
once, you know what I mean?
conversation for
So,
sure. If this happens, this is what we're gonna do. They also make, for people that live in second, third floors, they make those rope ladders now.
Yeah,
that they
there's
attach, you
there's
can
all
throw it out
kinds
the
of different.
window.
Yeah.
So you can do some research and study. If you've got a child up in a third floor bedroom, and it fires in the hallway, how are they gonna come down? They make these things that you mount, you open the lid, you throw it right out the window, and you
mount
climb
into the
down.
window, and yeah, because you see,
Couple $100
you see more
lost
and more.
back.
Like in fact, my house is built into a hillstone. In other words, what's the second floor if you're standing on the street's actually the third floor to the rear. So from one of my kids' bedrooms, it's about 30 feet to the ground.
Oh, you're not
you
jumping
know,
that.
And so, having said that, they do make all kinds of commercial systems now to be able to get out of higher windows and things.
Sure.
That's a great point. So.
And the one other thing that I'll bring up is grilling, outdoor grilling. So the one thing that I see the most is people just put the grill too close to the house. And this isn't, I mean, yes, it's very unsafe, but one thing it does the most is it just melts the siding.
Melts
If you got the
siding.
vinyl siding,
Melts
you see it
siding.
all the time when you're looking at
more we
houses.
see even on a lot of the decks that are made of engineered materials
Yeah.
as opposed to wood. You see them put it. In fact, I'm guilty of this. I put it too close to the railing.
the
on my
railing,
deck,
yeah,
and
and you
either
lift the
that's
lid,
melted,
yeah.
and then so, but yeah, siding.
But it scares
You
me
wanna make
because
sure
when
you
I
have good
see melted
ventilation.
siding, it tells me that there's someone living there who's not thinking and
Sure.
using their head a whole lot, to be honest with you. It doesn't need to be right up against the house.
One, do keep in mind you have a pressurized cylinder of propane.
propane.
You do want to keep some distance away. You
Either
want to
way,
set
if
it
it
back a
does,
little bit
something
from the
does
living areas of your house. You also want to make sure one of the things we see often, and I understand it's because the weather's rainy or for whatever reason, people grilling in garages. That's not a good idea.
No.
You want to have adequate ventilation. You want to prevent
Get out in the middle of the driveway.
the radiation of the heat. B, the gases that go along with combustion inside an enclosed area like that. That's just not a good idea. So you
Sure.
want to make sure you're outside, well ventilated area, set back away from the residence, and
Sure.
set back away from anything combustible or any plastics like deck railing and things like that. So if that means you have your grill out in the middle of your deck somewhere, you could always move it once it cools down. But at
Yeah, then
least
you can
keep
tuck it
away
in
from
after. Yeah,
Sure.
that's exactly right. And put the cover on it
Yeah.
and whatever. But when you're using it, let's get it out away from
Yeah, and with the covers, I also have a rule where I let it sit a period of time. I mean, I generally, if I'm grilling, don't put the cover on until the next day,
don't
actually, just to make sure it's completely cooled down, because the covers are combustible and can cause fires, and I've seen them cause fires.
What if someone smells gas? What should they do?
Good question.
Because gas, we have a lot of natural
Sure.
gas.
Absolutely,
And so people
absolutely.
think, oh, I don't want to bother anybody.
Well, no, if it's at the moment you smell gas, you should get out of the house, call 911.
I mean, that's
and-
serious
yeah,
stuff,
I mean,
right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
No one's ever going to fault you for being
No.
over.
And all the fire departments have gas meters and things like that, and you would be surprised how often we find problems with gas systems or gas leaks. So having said that, as soon as you smell gas, get out of the house.
I'm guilty, right? I always call, but we smell gas, freaked out, can't figure it out, called. The gas company came right out with their meter. They figured out where it was. I didn't shut my grill on the tank. Do you recommend, and that not shutting on the tank, the off button on the grill still allow gas to come out? So
I
they
close
told
the
me
tank
that
and
always
close the tank.
to always close the tank. Do
Yeah.
you recommend that?
Oh
mine
yeah,
leaked out
closing the
because I
tank when
didn't
you're
do
done
that.
grilling, but there would be, like you said, there's still an amount of in the high pressure hose that leads to the burner. So also, if you truly want to make sure that all the gas is out of your system after you close the tank, is you can open up
Bleed
the
it
burner
off.
and bleed it off.
What about carbon monoxide? Like, you hear about that? I mean, what's the best way?
Well,
How
that's
do you
something
tell
that
about
we
that?
haven't even gotten to. You know, I meant to bring
Well,
up
we have to-
earlier.
that's
when
a
we were
whole
talking about
show
the
its
detector.
own, right?
Yeah, no, every house, aside from the smoke detectors, we talked about smoke detectors quite extensively. A carbon monoxide detector, you know, it should be a part of every house too. You know, it truly is the silent killer, as they coined it. It's colorless, odorless, tasteless. You don't know it's there, but you know, it's a byproduct of combustion. Basically, if you have a furnace, if you have anything in your house that somehow or another, you know, uses combustion to facilitate, you know, some type of mechanical action, you're exposed. You have the potential for a CO problem.
Because there's no
And
other
so,
way to tell,
you know,
right?
Yeah. No, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't see it.
So
You know,
you-
so a CO detector, yeah, every house should have one.
Okay.
In fact, on every floor, you know,
Cody,
I
yes,
understand
one per level.
they're a little more expensive than
They are.
detectors. You know, at least one per level.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're actually making combination smoke detectors, CO detectors. You know, that maybe you want to aftermarket,
Two in
you want to
one, yeah.
hardwire to your house or something like that.
For
but
sure.
but no, the CO every house should have
Great.
CO detector.
Chief, I can't thank you enough for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you, man.
It's
Thanks
it's
for
been
having
so great.
Shane,
A couple things I
thank
want to
you.
do for you. For everybody watching, we talked about smoke detectors and fire departments having them. So we want to make sure that you guys have fire detectors in case. So I'm going to deliver a bunch of them to you. I'll donate them to our
Awesome,
fire
man.
hall.
Thank you.
And
Sales
I'll get that
restoration
set
coming
up.
through, hardcore
That's
homeowner.
on us at Zales. I'm also going to bring you a pallet of bottled water.
Awesome.
And then how many fire halls do you have in the Westbrook Borough?
We just have one.
Just the one.
main
So
station, yeah.
I can either bring you the skid, or I can keep the skid at my shop and bring cases as you need if you want storage. That way, summer's coming. It gets hot when you guys are out fighting fires. I'll bring you some water,
Appreciate it,
and
man.
you guys can stay hydrated and do your thing. We just really appreciate everything every fire department, every firefighter does. And,
Brad, good
it's
to
just
see
a
you.
little way to say thank you.
We
So
appreciate it. The guys
my
are really
pleasure.
going to appreciate the water, and
No, it's
our
my
residents are really going to appreciate the detectors. So
we
thank
want
you.
those smoke detectors, and when you run out, calls will bring you some more because you're only using them if you're putting them in places that need them.
Right.
So don't pay for those. Call me. I'll hook you back up.
Tony Corbin,
Thank you,
Corbin
man.
Plaster,
Of course.
Boston, the Irish. Come on, man, love you. The first company to do with Shane Train out of Boston, Massachusetts. Get plastered with Corbin Plaster.
Get plastered, okay?
Yeah, get plastered. Let me ask you one more question though. You know, nowadays with everybody on their phone and stuff, what about pulling over for emergency vehicles? I think that's
Great
something
question.
that people don't talk about. And how do we do it the correct way without freaking out? Like if we're in an intersection and stuff, like what do we do?
The law prescribes that actually you pull to the right. You pull to the right and yield to emergency vehicles. Also to yield to emergency vehicles, you know, as they proceed through intersections.
I
So,
think intersections
you know,
are the scariest for people.
The safest thing, and a lot of times, Shane, you're right. It's even the other drivers don't know what to do to everybody panics. The one thing that you have to understand is that we, as drivers of emergency vehicles, also recognize that in many cases, people will just stop. So we're extra cautious when we're around other vehicles. But having said that, make your way to the right shoulder or right hand side of the road as best as you can to allow the emergency vehicle to proceed through. Don't cause an accident if it seems like somebody else isn't yielding and you just cannot get over. The best thing to do is move forward to the right as you can, slow up, acknowledge the emergency vehicle as best you can, so at least they know you're paying attention. But if we see a situation where a car just can't get out of the way because of another car, we're recognizing that, we know that, and we see enough people unfortunately react by just stopping or, you know, sitting in the middle of an intersection not knowing what to do, almost like in a state of panic, if you would. Just if you're able to safely pull to the right. and
It's like
stop.
if you guys are on the side of the road, they should get way over because you guys walk around with your truck. It's no different like a tow truck or someone
Sure.
pulling over. Like they got to make plenty of room.
Well,
Absolutely,
be
yeah.
aware for sure. I mean, these guys are putting their lives on the line. It's like road workers, like you're talking about. I mean, these firefighters are, and they're going to block the scene. They're going to keep people out and all that stuff. But it's a big deal. So, hey, one last thing, challenge for the day. I like to challenge everybody who's watching it now. If you're going to watch the replay later, whatever, guys, when you're out in the community today and you see any first responders, EMTs, firefighters, police, any of those folks, do yourself a favor, do them a favor, just give them a shout out and say thank you. Shake their hand, just appreciate them.
And
It's
I
it's
say
a
that-
pretty
that-
big
that's
deal.
not just a challenge of the day, a challenge of every day.
Should be a
so.
challenge of every day. We
But-
really
but
got
no,
to
I
love and
appreciate- we
appreciate it.
appreciate
I mean,
the
it's a
challenge,
big deal.
so-
So I challenge it for at least today.
Yes,
Let's have that
absolutely,
awareness
absolutely.
and let's love on our first responders. So, Chief, thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Matt.
What
Thank
a
you.
great show. Really appreciate
No, I
all
really
of
enjoyed the conversation.
your knowledge and passing that stuff on. And I hope people take heed to it. And
How do you like the new studio? You were in both. How do you like this one?
That's a nice studio, Shane. I like the setup.
Well,
what's
we-
great about it
Nice
is
feel.
he's got steaks going upstairs for us when we're done. We're gonna have steak, baked potato, and asparagus, right?
Well, you didn't hear the smoke detector, so.
Oh, it's not ready yet. Then it's not ready yet. Shane, thanks for all you do as well.
Oh, we love
And,
you, man. Thanks for, I mean, listen, it's amazing what social media has done. I tell people, you know, what handicaps some people is they looked at their kids as reference to social media.
Sure.
But us as the elders of the community, the business people, the leaders, it's up to us to show people how to be social and media. And what is going on in our community, like really, with businesses and becoming our own government, with just
For sure.
becoming human
Awesome.
with people and sharing in a way that, yes, we have titles, but our humanness is always the same. So God bless you all. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. Come on the reshare. We love you the same, but share the same.
everybody have a great day. Chief.
God bless.